Good evening, dear people. You're welcome once again to our usual Monday program, The Debate. And today we are going to tackle a very interesting topic. And the topic is industrialization and manufacturing is key to Africa's structural transformation. And we're asking ourselves the question, how important can these be in adding value to Africa's global market chains? And what role can the diaspora play in bringing their know-how in these areas? I am your host, Mbolifor Elvis Mbolifor, and this afternoon we are going to have a speaker on board, and that will be Mrs. Oben, who will give us a general appraisal of the topic for about 10 minutes or so. And then we will have our panelists who will come in and will thrill you for the rest of the time that we are going to be on the program. Join me, welcome Mrs. Oben, who is ready in the studio with me, and I will be handing the floor to her to introduce herself and then to tell us more about industrialization and manufacturing as key to Africa's structural transformation. Mrs. Oben?
Hello. Hi, Mbolifor. Thank you so much for having me today. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all and your viewers, the Africans watching, the non-Africans watching, the younger generation watching, the middle and the elderly who will watch today and those who will watch in years to come. So it's a pleasure to be here. When it comes to talking about Africa, there is something about the way my heart lights up and my eyes light up, because when we hear the Africa we want, that is exactly the kind of topic I wake up to and go to bed with. So again, once more to the team of Samplon, I want to say thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Mbolifor. So again, my name is Miranda Oben, born in Cameroon, a Cameroonian and living in Germany, now a German. I work as an IT engineer from Monday through Friday, so behind the computer with codes and so on. But then on weekends, some weekends and some holidays, you would see me defending the Africa we want at conferences. So this topic is really what my heart beats for. I'm the founder and the president of the Returnees Project Incorporated, which is a project now which celebrates that diaspora that takes that bold step to either move back home or invest back home. So we find people on the African continent, starting with Cameroon as our, proof of concept, see those who have returned home in different domains, agriculture, health, IT, just about every sector, and who are investing in the economy of either the country, as in Cameroon, or Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, etc. So my project, again, the Returnees Project Incorporated, runs across Africa and tries to find these Africans who are already bringing an impact to what we believe, as I'll tell you later on, is a step towards the 2063 UN SDG goals. So for today, the topic on industrialization and manufacturing as key to Africa's structural transformation is so true. Like, it's as true as you and I will wake up tomorrow and go to bed by grace. But then when we wake up in the morning, as much as you have a routine of what will function, and you might have an idea of what will not function, for Africa to be where we want, so the Africa we want, it lies on you and I. And it is spot on to say it will not happen if we don't look at industrialization closely. First, from our perspective as the people, and from the perspective of the government, what the government can do. The government can do a lot. So I'll just give you a little, outline of what I brought today to talk about for about 9 minutes now. And then after that, we'll have a panel which will come, you ask more questions, and then they'll discuss on this. So looking at the Agenda 2063 of the UN, which talks about the Africa we want, I'll start by specifying that Africa is a very rich continent, like we all know. It's rich in natural resources, it's rich in the people. It is also blessed to have people who love the continent. Now, how the people can invest back into the continent is what we're trying to shake up and awaken. Now, the word industrialization is what I'll start with. What is it, first of all? So there is a period where an economy will decide, let's have a look at our social and economic structure and try to make sure that we have things in place which are, let me just give you how I would define it with the Wikipedia, right? Industrialization is the period of social and economic change that transform a human group from the agrarian industrial society. So this involves an extensive now reorganization of the economy. And then you start looking at the second step, which is manufacturing. So you reorganize the economy, and then you move into manufacturing. That's what we'll be looking at. What you might also know already is the fact that Friday, November 20th, 2020. So every year on the 20th of November is set as the Africa Industrialization Day. Now, did you know there was an Africa Industrialization Day? That's the day where we have conferences and themes across the globe, which focus just with that. We want to have examples, for example, of industries which are already there, which we want the others to emulate. Industry which we can put forth for the growth of the economy of the country or the continent in general. So the Africa Industrialization Day this year, of course, as a result of the COVID-19 and the pandemic we're facing, we won't have that many conferences face-to-face, but online we're planning to, with the digitalization now, reach as many people as possible. Now I'll move on to the second part of industrialization, which is manufacturing. Now manufacturing is the production of these goods. So you produce goods which are for use or for sale, and you can use labor, you can use machines, you have specific tools, and you have chemical or biological processing or formulation. So you have chemical or biological processing. So you have steps to get a particular product at the end of it. So you have raw materials, you go all the way to finished goods, either using labor or using machines, using chemicals or laboratories, or just using biological transformation. Actually, it hurt me the last time I was in a conference, and I have to admit the fact that I heard that in my home country, as basic as a toothpick which is easy to produce, you would think, is being imported. Now, how about us starting with some basic things like that? How can we have toothpicks being imported? Whereas a lot of homes, almost the entire country needs toothpicks. So if you put up an industry which produces it, the money turns around within our economy. Start with that. Now, in my research, I found a very good structure here, write-up here by Ana Paula Mendes, in which she says, African manufacturing began to develop in the early 20th century. So already in the 1920s, right? We already have the idea of this is how industrial we can get. That was the colonial period, but industrialization had started. Then it slowed down a little bit. So there was a second phase. So we had an initial phase in 1920 and then a second phase again in the 1960s, where industrialization peaked momentum. There was a little bit of more manufacturing again, but things are slowing down again at this period. Now, what we're trying to do is see how we can ensure that this will of the United Nations of us not leaving anyone behind, or looking at the SDGs for 2063, looking at us particularly. So when in 2016, January 1st, 2016, we put up the SDG goal, that's the Sustainable Development Goals. 17 of them were set up by the UN. And when they came into play, we're trying to interlink and design a way that leaves a blueprint, right, to have a better tomorrow, a more sustainable future for all. So we don't leave anyone behind when we want to look at this. But if you look at the African continent, and the SDG says no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. Later on, I'll drop this paper. So if you want a copy of this, the moderators will get through to me and you can have a copy of this little excerpt I'm talking to you about, and all these points I will be making in the future. So all these clean water, sanitation, affordable and clean energy, all these are things which, when we look within ourselves, we try to find out how we can answer these SDG goals through industrialization, through manufacturing on the continent, right? So we're looking at something like FABA, for Africa, by Africans, or call it FUBU, for us, by us. So I leave you with two things: FABA, for Africans, for Africa, by Africans, or FUBU, for us, by us. So a basic example is anything where you find there is a need in your community, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your country, start answering it by finding where is the demand, what can I supply? It always starts with one customer, and then two customers, and then it grows. One thing with industrialization and manufacturing is if we all tend to use use our products and services generated on the continent, we will have the money just turn amongst ourselves. Right? So imagine that for which I'm going to get to later on to the diaspora. Imagine that the diaspora comes home and flies home with more of the products, flies back to Germany or the USA or UK with products from home. They serve as ambassadors to the West, and our products might instead get exported instead of us having more imports of basic things we can produce, right? So looking again at this SDG, when I say no poverty, I start by saying every Tom, Dick, Harry, every young generation or anybody sitting and watching this who's, let me just say, below 25, you should be able to already start leveraging digitalization. It's not the days where you're going to think, I'm going to have a white collar job, find a job, go sit in an office. Get creative. What can I do to answer a particular need in my community? How can I connect online to find buyers for whatever I want to produce? So getting online is not only for fun, it could be for fun, but more think about what can I produce which my country, my neighborhood, my people will need. So industrialization starts with that one mind, which starts with the changes. And then we look at each step. Again, here, if I'm talking the agricultural sector, the IT sector, the health sector, those are the steps we need to take to go into the manufacturing. You want to manufacture where there is a need, right? So I was actually having an example here of a painting. That painting was actually presented to me the last time I was in Cameroon. That's an example of an artist. Imagine now he has to feed his family and he gets into very large scale production of paintings like this and sells within his community. Now he makes money from this and he ends up, if he builds tomorrow a big factory of this production, he makes money and he employs our youths, which in turn help other families. Now look at the outfit here on the picture behind me. Now that is an African outfit as well. If this lady gets a lot of people buying things from her, she ends up opening a big factory and employing your brother, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. So we end up having money just turning amongst us. So how do we want to end poverty, ensure there is zero hunger, ensure there is good health and all that? What I usually start with the example is, look at you and I, from when you wake up in the morning till you go to bed. Get the hair products produced locally. I know I'm thinking about NBS, for example, in Douala or Sherilicious in Germany. No publicity intended here, but these are people who produce now hair products. And if they ended up with a big factory, chemically proven, good standards, they will employ us and we will escape now that poverty. We will get quality. We will get our own manufacturing of our own products for us, by us again. So now the Africa we want to have is an Africa which is industrialized, which has a lot of manufacturing, so that we not only import, but we become the place that exports. Let's have our own products here. Let's have a market here. Let's have people thinking, oh, I want to get this from Ghana. I want to get this from Nigeria. I want to get this from Cameroon, Kenya, South Africa, all these other countries. So African economies, which look, they are remarkably import dependent. We don't want that. We want to reverse and make African economics exports. We want to export to other countries. If Africa has all those opportunities, we want to change the narrative, starting with a talk like today to say, think export, don't think import. Because if the country is sitting with so much, I was checking actually statistics and I saw that the continent is well endowed with natural resources, like we said at the beginning, and the continent is sitting on more than 82 trillion US dollars in discovered natural resources, with the potential to contribute to 30 billion US dollars a year in government revenues over the next 20 years. So Africa also possesses these natural resources, the rivers, the forests, the fishery in vast quantities. So it's so unexploited that we have so much wealth that if we tend to look closely, we will be the ones exporting. Now, moving to my last point, which is actually about the diaspora. What I tell my diasporans always is, instead of taking a lot of things from the West when you fly home, focus more on using the products, go with not so much. Like I see people struggling with baby food when they're flying home to Africa. You grew up in Africa, you have baby food there. You actually have the most tested ones. I'll just give an example. Kevi baby food. Tanti baby food. Those are baby food products which are already in Africa. So why struggle with extra luggage to take baby food from here because you're going on vacation to a country where you were a baby? So literally, we're buying more from here and we're even helping with the import. Think more about when you're going home, find out what is available there, what has been proven has good quality, and leverage on that. So to my diasporans, when you want to go back home, think about this. Go with know-how, go with money to spend on the people, go with training possibilities, have the right contacts to give the people, because we know in the West here who can be a mentor. And when you're doing business with the Western world, always do business eye to eye with the people. Do not think, okay, I'm going to help Africa. Never. Don't sit on any table to do business or start any business relation with the West on that AIDS. No, we're doing eye to eye business. And we keep saying the West, which wants to invest in Africa, talk with us, not talk about us. So when a diasporan is going home, remember you're an ambassador for your country. When you get home and you're coming back, what you bring back is very important and what you take along. So you serve as that bridge between the two nations. And to wrap this up, let's always stick on the SWOT analysis. What are the problems facing the fact that we can't industrialize? You will hear there is infrastructure deficit. Focus on that. Investing in human capital, focus on training. There is unfavorable business environment. Create the business environment you mean by changing the mindset of the people. There's inadequate financing for industrial development. Those are the 4 examples I choose. Take the necessary people with the mindset and the right contacts. So we create a quick list of people who will help in the long term, setting our SMART goals in health, agriculture, food processing, and IT. Now, what can we all do to have collective success? It is to use the products which are made by us and from us, and let the governments start listening to the people. And I talk to the younger generation when I say use the digital platforms and beat what it takes for us to connect to the West. Look deep inside. Look deep inside of the people you have around you, because we have to change the mindset of 400 years ago. Today, it is important for us to be an inspiration to the younger generation. So, Mr. Moderator, to wrap up, I'm inviting everyone as well to join us, talk to the panelists, and on the returnees platform every Sunday from November 1st from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. We'll be inviting people from Canada, Germany, the UK, the US, France, etc. So we have this discussion more in depth. What are you doing for the continent? How can we have the Africa we want? How can we talk to the government? How can we have the younger generation set that motto going so that industrialization and manufacturing in Africa will also be consumed by the Africans? So again, FUBU, for us, by us, be an inspiration. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful talk.
My pleasure.
Mrs. Oben, IT engineer, defender of the 2063 agenda. And you say we cannot make Africa better if we do not look to industrialization closely. And that Africa is very rich, blessed with people who love the continent. And you equally have reminded us of the date of 20 November every year, which is the African Industrialization Day. And you equally say that we can do production of goods where we use labor, tools, chemicals, or biological processing. And you lament equally that toothpick is imported into our country. And you talk of Africa for us, or Africa for Africans by Africans, that's Faba. I use equally Fubu for Africa by us. And you say or talk about the diaspora, encouraging them to go home with less imported Western goods and consume Africa. Like we had last week, how can we make Africa better?
Exactly.
By consuming Africa. And you end up by saying that the government should learn to listen to people, and that our youths should equally think to be creative, to answer to a particular need with the use of ICT. You have been so wonderful, and we are blessed to
Thank
have you on our platform. This is your platform, and we hope that we'll always have you
My
when we meet you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Oben. You've been a resource person to us, and we must say that we are
Proud to
proud
be here.
to have
Thank
you
you
on
so
our
much and
panel.
have a
Thank
good
you
session.
so
I'll be
very much
watching
again.
behind the scenes. Have fun.
Okay, I have Daniel who is joining.
Thank you very much.
Daniel, you're welcome.
It was a very
It's always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. Thank you so much, and
Mrs.
have a nice
Oben's
day.
session was a very thought-provoking one, and I must say that it was equally
Thank you.
all it
Thank
was
you.
equally encompassing.
Daniel Adebowa,
Yeah,
one of our African countries. I'm happy to have you on board, Daniel.
thank you very much. Mrs. Oben's session was quite thought-provoking, and it was
Yeah, it was
very, very encompassing.
uplifting, and she was so eloquent in her submission. And I must say, those watching us,
I didn't hear that. That was a break.
thank you. Thank you. And I equally want to thank you for joining. Let me remind you with the topic again for today. We are talking about industrialization. We're talking about industrialization and manufacturing as key to Africa's structural transformation. And the question we are asking ourselves this evening is, how important can these be in adding value to Africa's global market chains, and what role can the diaspora play in bringing their know-how in these areas? Mrs. Oben already had an overview and appraisal of the topic, and she has really edified us on what we can do. Let the youth start thinking of creating something in order to solve a problem. Now you are on board. I wanted to get your appraisal equally on this topic that we have. It's like a multi-topic with many aspects in it. What is your appraisal?
Yeah, thank you very much. Industrialization as a key to development in the African countries is cannot be overemphasized. It is extremely important. Apart from the fact that it will help to conserve the the scarce resources of the African nations and help to multiply it within themselves, it would also help to get those that are unemployed or those that are that do not have that are underemployed. It will get them to be gainfully employed. And there are very many sides to getting the African nations industrialized. My opinion is that a number of the governments in the African nations have not shown enough willpower to be able to they've not shown enough willpower to the intent that they really want their countries to be industrialized. Um, the 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 youths or the people in the countries, yes, must be willing, but they can do just so much. When the environment is not enabling, like we find in many of the African countries, it will really, really be difficult to break through the glass ceilings that have been, put in place by the establishments that that are by the establishments of the day. And this is one of the messages that diasporans and diaspora organizations can pass across to the African nation, because in a way we seem to have access to speak to power. Many of us diasporans have had times and opportunities to meet with persons and people in government, and we really, if we want to, we should be able to speak truth to power. Many African diasporans that live abroad have adequate connections, and they know how to solve some of the problems that face the African nations. And in partnership, in tandem with the people back at home, they can be very useful in helping, to stem the tide of backwardness that seem to plague many of the African nations. But conclusively, the truth is that we have all that we need, or we have about all that we need on the African nation to be the destination of choice globally. The manpower is there, the resources are there, and if I would say, even the technology is there. I want to share quickly about what happened just last week. A Nigerian startup by name Paystack, a Nigerian startup that was founded by two young boys, was bought over by Stripe. Stripe is a Silicon Valley company, and the cost of the buyover was $200 million. Now, let me put that in perspective. There are companies in Nigeria, banks, not just company, banks in Nigeria that have been since the 1940s. In fact, someone did an analysis and said that 3 banks, one since 1940s, one came up maybe in the 1970s, and another one came up in the maybe 1990 or something. 3 of them, their net worth is not up to what that country, that company, that startup is still a startup, just 5 years, started by 2 young boys. The worth of Paystack, as it was bought over last week by Stripe, being $200 million, is far more than the combination of the worth of those 3 banks. And that's the power of technology. That's to tell you that we have the know-how, we have the wherewithal. We just need enabling environments. We need, we need to add what the diasporans have to offer to what currently obtains on the African continent. And I tell you, even the people in the West will be seeking, to do. Africa will be the destination of choice. Already it is the destination of choice. There are potentials. You wonder why a lot of development organizations are rushing to have a piece of Africa. It is because the potentials are huge. Do we want to talk about manpower? The median age in Africa as a whole is about 17 years old, and that is enormous. That is great. So I want to say that Africa is set to be the next power place in the world, and we can make it happen.
Okay, Africa is said to be the next power area in the world, but I will trick you a bit to say that the Economics Intelligence Unit, which is a British-based research group, reckons that Africa accounted for more than 3% of global manufacturing output in the 1970s, but this percentage has since halved, and it warns that Africa's manufacturing industry is likely to remain small throughout the remainder of this decade. What is your opinion about this assertion?
If I look at what used to be from histories and a bit of what I experienced while being very young, compared to what obtains now, I could say that statistic is close to the truth. In very many parts of Africa, taking Nigeria for example, life was good in the 70s than we have it now. I can tell you that for free. And one of the factors you might want to allude to that is that there has not been so much planning for the population expansion that the African nation has experienced in the last 2 or 3 decades. The resources are there, albeit untapped, but they have not been transformed into beneficial funds for the people, that have come on board in the last 20 to 30 years. Those of us who had parents that went to school, that went to higher institution, the life they lived, even uncles now, or 10, 15 years before we went to higher institution, the ones that went to higher institution at those times had their meals for free. They had life was just very good for them. However, somehow, and I think it's part of the lack of will of the ruling class. Somehow the the production capability nosedived, reduced, and there was no intention to sustain it or make it better. I may bold to say that the crop of African leaders that have been, it's not that those that were there 40 years ago were exceedingly brilliant, but unfortunately, the crop of African leaders that have been in the last 20, 25 years have been a colossal disaster to the continents. They were the ones that could not stand up for their rights, and they would rather, reap the benefit of the now for a greater good of the future. However, the youth can take it back. The youth can turn back the tide of time. The youth can make all of the difference. As other continents of the world, other parts of the world continue to invest in education. They invested in infrastructure. They invested in development. And that's what we can see today. As those other parts of the world continue to invest, Africa and the African leaders probably went to sleep. Many of them, and it's heartbreaking, many of them have offshore accounts in secret different parts of the world where their looted funds were stashed in, and they wouldn't develop education. The few ones that have the wherewithal will go out of their way to get educated in the West, and the West, seeing them as potential, seeing them as veritable tools, we seek to retain them. And that's why we are saying to diasporans today that your roots is your roots, and you have to look back to your roots, and that's the place where you can make the most impact. Being in the West, you will just add to the number, you will just do fairly good, but going back to your roots, you can stand out and you can make a lot of difference. Per the number of people you will influence, it's massive. Looking back at our African roots, so we can turn back the tide of time. We can reverse the infrastructural deficits that the leadership have occasioned over the years, but it's going to take time. But we can start from now and start improving it.
Thank you so much for that submission. Mrs. Oben highlighted that Africa has about 82 trillion US dollars of resources, which can account for about 30 billion US dollars a year in government revenue. Yet, we know that industrialization has been a campaign promise across the African continent by many of our leaders, with its acknowledged ability to bring prosperity, new jobs, and better incomes for all. Yet, given these resources, these rich resources that Africa has been blessed with, the continent is still less industrialized today than it was 4 decades ago. What do you think is the cause for this retarded industrialization with all the riches that Africa is endowed with? Daniel.
No, thank you very much. No doubt, Africa is richly endowed. No doubt there are resources that are yet untapped. Mrs. Urban actually only just talked about discovered natural resources. I tell you that, we can't put a figure to resources that have not yet been discovered. But the truth is that there are probably multiples of that 83 trillion worth of resources that have not been discovered. Some of them will only be discovered after some of these 83 trillion discovered resources have been used up. And that's how rich and blessed Africa is. However, just like, a kid or a child or a talented person in his or her raw form would not make so much impact if he or she is not developed and is not educated along the appropriate line. Africa would not develop beyond the level of squalor it finds itself now or herself now if there is no concerted efforts. You talked about campaign promises, and campaign promises that are failed and that have continued to fail is not just regarding industrialization. Even in matters that are life-threatening, campaign promises are failed over the length and breadth of African countries. You imagine that a reasonable government would at least put in place appropriate health care so that when they need emergency situation, they could take advantage of the health care they put in. And I'm saying this because, healthcare is just very basic. Before we go into industrialization, how many of our leaders in our countries of nativity can get treated in their countries? Before I start pointing fingers to leaders of other countries, I want to raise my hand to say that my own president in Nigeria is one of the biggest culprits. Last year or 2 years ago, he spent over 110 days in the country of his colonizers getting treated. This is a man that promised during campaign that he was going to counsel medical tourism, as it is called. Said no government official will go on medical tourism. It is the same guy, my president, very ruthlessly responsible, that his children will take the presidential jet from one state to the other to do photo shoots. Shameless set of human beings. Those leaders are a complete disaster on Africa. And the truth is that we have what it takes now to take it away from them. And if you're a little bit conversant with what is happening in Nigeria in the last 10 days, there has been protests. Nigeria has been burning. From the length and breadth of Nigeria, there has been protests because the youth got fed up. The youth just felt they can't take it again. And those are people that have things in their brain, not the ones whose gray matter, there is an element of the brain that is called gray matter. The ones whose gray matter is already turning to bile. And you wonder if blood runs in their vein with the enormity of the calamity that goes on under them. But it doesn't move them, because if they have headache, they could easily take the presidential jet or and they could fly out to any part of the world to get treated. But you know what? Disasters like COVID has shown us that you can do bad for just so long. Disasters like COVID, I can tell you, countless number of leaders, countless number of public officials in Nigeria died because of COVID. Some of them could not even die in their own states. They went to other states to go and die because they could not even develop the most basic of health facilities in their country. So it is beginning. The awareness is spreading. And as we have it in Nigeria, I'm sure that other countries of the world, other countries of Africa are waking up. The youths are telling themselves that no, we cannot take it anymore. And there's an uprising, and things are going to get better. We are not going to live on campaign promises again. The times of hoping that somebody will do well is past. The times of going ourselves as people that have the right mindset to do the right things, the times are here. And I tell you that, despite the fact that they promised and failed in their campaign, in the campaigns, the politicians are not the ones we are to look up to again. The world is becoming so globalized now. Information is becoming ubiquitous, it's everywhere, and that's going to make a lot of difference. And in the coming years, I promise that you will see, significant changes. Thank you
so much. I go back to Mr. Oben, who said we should think export, not import. And she equally highlighted that most diasporans, when they are coming to the country, they prefer to carry baby food, for example, from the Western world into Africa, where they themselves were fed as children and they grew up very well. Do you think where is this type of mentality even coming from amongst our diasporans? Do you think with this mentality they can contribute enough to make
thank you very
Africa
much.
better?
It's very important to understand that as humans, we are structured to remain in our comfort zone. As humans, it's our default setting to to keep to what is convenient. Change is not is not the default thing for us. Change doesn't come easy. We don't normally choose to change. Traveling back home to African countries and wanting to use what is locally available poses some set of inconvenience to an average African person, and that's the truth. However, it is losing touch with the base, losing touch with the base that makes for this kind of scenario. It's not just about baby food alone. You might even want to you might want to justify someone that carries baby food in that, okay, he or she might say, I don't know the level of authenticity, I don't know how original those baby food are now. I can tell you for free that the baby food that I had, or that kids younger than me had 10, 12 years after I was a baby, that the quality in that baby food then and what obtains now is different. And I'm not making a case for the diasporans that will carry baby food back home. I'm just saying that comfort is the default setting of humans. However, so going beyond baby food, there are just so very many other things that one should seek to make use of when you are in your country of nativity, as against going with a lot of those things from here. I mean, a lot of us used black soap that were concocted locally, and we bathed with them over the years. And even if you do not want to use black soap, you would find good quality soap back at home if you choose to travel home. But a lot of diasporans that are based abroad would still take their toiletries with them back home. The question here is if they do not understand that it's a paradigm shift for them if they go back home and they use the things that the people at home use. Apart from the fact that they will be helping the trade back there, they would also be sending a message back to others that going abroad and using the things that are made abroad as a diaspora is not the end of the world. The things that are here, many of which are also equally very qualitative, that the things that are here are also very effective for whatever purpose you want to use them for. I know people that they import textile material, like you said, they import textile materials from different parts of Africa into Germany, for example, and they sell them at very good prices. And some of those people, when they travel, like she said, those people go empty and then they return full. I, as one, am an advocate for African products. I seek to serve as an intermediary between companies in Germany and producers, basically producers of agri products in Nigeria. And the bottom line, the major crux of this is to showcase Africa in a light that is not commonly broadcast, that is not commonly known. And that is because I know we have a lot of good agri products, but many of them will never be known if we diasporans don't showcase them. And that's the place of the diasporans. We know these people, we dine with them, we work with them, we interact with them, we do businesses with them. We stand at a very good vantage position to be able to introduce the products that are of African origin to them, and to source these products in large quantities and to make it available to them for factory and industrial uses. So diasporans need to begin to wake up that you don't have to be the business person. Just do your own in your little way, in your little part. Ensure that you do not lose touch with your base. And in not losing touch with your base, you must seek to improve the lives of even the closest person to you, one niece there, one cousin there. You must seek to influence their life positively. And of course, there is also the aspect of the fact that we should think of exports, because that's one of the best ways of improving the currency. That's a subject for another day. However, of improving the currency of the African countries, and then of course of conserving the resources that are there, so that you don't spend all of your money in importing and then you don't have anything to export. When we start thinking exports, then that only then can we start thinking of production on very large scales.
So much. Thank you so much. And I wish to cue up by asking you, how important can industrialization and manufacturing be to Africa if we must make Africa better, or if it can make Africa better?
Absolutely, absolutely. Industrialization and manufacturing is key to is one of the key tools, is one of the key instruments that can help to increase forex. And if there is anything about international finance that helps a country, it is having so much more to sell than you have to buy for your survival. If you have so much to sell, then you can rake in foreign exchange called forex, and then you will become better and better in how sustainable your life, or your resources is. Looking at the GDP of African countries, you see that a lot of what they sell is products that are not finished. Imagine Nigeria, I would say that again, my dear country, discovered oil in the 1960s. Actually, before 1960, 1958, somewhere in Oloibiri in Delta State. And up to this moment that I speak with you, Nigeria still exports our crude oil out. It is then refined and exported and sold back to Nigeria. Little wonder in a country where the minimum wage in Nigeria is about $80 or thereabouts. Minimum wage is about $80. Little wonder that in a country where the minimum wage is about $78 to $80, oil prices are so high that it's a shame. And we have that in very many other African countries too. The resources that they have at their disposal, that they should refine and fine-tune and process so that it is of the highest quality before they sell it out. They sell it out at that low quality. They sell it out as the basic, raw material for whatever it is that the other people out there are producing. And when they sell it out at cheap, what happens is that they don't get so much for it. The people that add value to it, because along the value chain of products, along the value chain of raw materials, the more value that is added to a thing, the higher you can sell it. So, for example, crude oil, for example, has so many products that could be gotten from it. I remember the government in Nigeria, the current government, 5 years ago, when during their campaign, they promised to, when I remember this, they promised to construct one refinery every year. As I speak with you now, my brother, even the ones that were functioning before they came in have become total loss now. Imagine that refineries, get run over a period of 3-4 years. They record losses of say 400 billions of dollars, and then they don't produce not even a drop of crude oil or petrol that is used in Nigeria. And they promised us when they were coming in that they will construct refineries, and that is the lot of most African countries. They ship out their product. Cocoa is there too as a product that is sold in its rawest form to companies abroad. And then statistics has it that when cocoa is processed, it adds as much as 18 times the value of it. I mean, when you process it to chocolate and all of those other products that cocoa can lead to, it adds as much as 18 times the value. Now look at if that 18 times the value is retained in African countries. Imagine how much strength it will give to the foreign exchange, and then of course how much wealth it can create, not just for the government, not just for as GDP. Imagine how much wealth it can create in the country itself for the common people, and that's what we are talking about. I do hope that industrialization can be a dream come true, and then that we can make it happen. It's going to significantly impact the life of Africans to start with, and then of course it's the beginning of the wealth that we want the African nations to begin to experience.
Thank you so much. I wish to appreciate the presence and active participation of those who are watching us on Facebook Live. And I'm talking about Mori Okeyu, who has been following us so closely. Mori Okeyu, you're so welcome. Continue following our programs and share our link with your friends so that they too can join us on this platform. Mr. Daniel, how do you see Africa in a few years if our resources could be channeled so properly and invested in the field of
Thank you very
industrialization
much.
and manufacturing? Do you think Africa
Thank you
will
very
get
much.
better before even
Yeah,
2023?
there is a definition of madness that is said to mean that if you do the same thing the same way and expect a different result, they say it is madness. We cannot expect that things will continue the way they've been and then expect that by some magic the Africa of our dream will materialize. I'm sorry to say, I do hope that we will not hand over this dysfunctional Africa to our children. I do hope that, the place of Africa among the Committee of Nations, among the Committee of Continents, will not remain the same when our children begin to come to positions of leadership and accountability. Because it will then mean that we have not done the most of our part. I tell you this, technology is here as an inexcusable tool for us to make use of, to overcome, everything that supposedly ailed the older generation. We have technology at our disposal. I just give you an example of a company that was started 5 years ago by two young boys that sold for $200 million to a Silicon Valley, top company called Stripe. Could we have a lot of those kind of a lot of those kind of startups? Could the government make the environment more enabling for them? Should we think more deeply of appointing people not just because they are from my local clan, or could we possibly re-engineer our voting processes in the African nations? Can we get people into positions that that have the brain and the will to perform? The woman, there are two women now that are gunning for the position of Director General of the World Trade Organization, and I'm proud to say that one of them is a Nigerian. I personally think that she's the most qualified, and she's very likely she's in the last round already. She's very likely going to become the Director General of the World Trade Organization. That was a person whom, in the Nigerian situation, actually she was sort of disgraced out of office, because when you have people that are upstanding and that are righteous, they will not really be able to thrive in an environment where there is filth and an environment that is perfunctionary. And that's what we have in many of the African nations. If we want industrialization and manufacturing to make the appropriate impact it's supposed to make, then we have to ensure that the environment is enabling by making use of our voice and our capacity to elect responsible people, not vagabonds, that we have now, to elect responsible people, not people that were shipped out of the country to go and study, and the position that they're occupying now was prepared for them by their fathers, who themselves and their mothers, who were politicians, before they came on board. We have to, put people in place that can make the environment enabling for us. And again, of course, the people that have the opportunity, diasporans that have the opportunity to see how it should be, should, make conscious efforts to educate the people back at home, help them in whatever way they deem fit, not in whatever way they, diasporans, deem fit, because that will be a top-down approach, bottom-up approach. What do these people need? What do they, everyone should do their part in their little corners. And if I shine my light in my little corner and you shine your light in your little corner, before we know it, it will be, the whole environment will be illuminated, if only we will do our part. So it's left for us that there's a lot that we can do as diasporans, and there's a lot that we can do as Africans if we catch, the vision, and we understand that we understand where we are going.
Thank you so much, Daniel. You have been so industrious and so informative during this session, and I must say that I am blessed to have you on the program. One last word from you. Do you think that everything being equal, Africa can get better if much emphasis is laid on industrialization as well as manufacturing? In just few words, because we are rounding up already the program, the time is always very short when we have much to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Africa has got everything it takes. We've got the manpower. I said earlier that the median age, the average age in the African continent is 17, and that's power. Those are a group of people that are bursting with energy. They can work, physical work, they can work, mental work, and they are dynamic. They are impressive set of people. They are people that can use tools, technology as a tool. They are just all-rounder. This generation that happened to be the average age of and what average age means that we have far more younger people that have life ahead of them. They have a beautiful life ahead of them. If only they can find the right environment to express themselves. So yes, Africa can attain that position that it is the toast of the other continents of the world. It can be, and to tell you, the other parts of the world will see the impact of China. That is probably a subject for another day. But you see China jostling to give loans to African nations because they know that this is a fruitful land. This is an investment that cannot go to waste. If I don't get my money, I take over the resources. And that's to tell you that yes, Africa has got all it takes. And when you see people, like they say, when it's only a tree that has got fruits that experience stones being thrown at it. When you see people jostling for Africa and wanting to get a piece of the cake, it is because it is juicy. And there is a lot that we Africans cannot even see now that the powers of the world can see. And that's why they are queuing up now to say that we want to be a part of Africa. I, by the grace of God, I'm a Christian, and I want to say that I think I missed my Bible verse a little, but I am never ashamed to make an allusion to the Bible. Africa is that land that, like the Israelites in Jeremiah, he said that 7 nations will hold onto your skirt and they will say, "I want to go with you." That is Africa. Africa is actually that land, and you can see them holding onto the skirt of Africa, even when things are looking not so good. And that's to tell you that there's a future that lies ahead of Africa. We only need to get it right. We only need to have the right set of people that will lead us, and then we'll soar. We'll make all the difference in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy to have had you in the program. Like I said, time is always very short when we have much to say. I had Daniel on board, and equally there was Mrs. Oben, who gave us an overview of this topic, industrialization and manufacturing. And we go home with these words: Madam Oben, Mrs. Oben said, diasporans should go home with know-how, money, and training, as well as their connections to share with those who are at home, and they too should serve as good ambassadors for Africa. And Daniel talks of having a bottom-up approach if we must make Africa to be a place that we want it to be. And we should think export and not think import all the time. And we end up by saying that to make Africa better, we have to get creative to answer to a particular need with the use of ICT. That is how we had it today on the debate. Thank you so much for being there, and goodbye. See you next Monday again with a brilliant topic that will thrill your minds. Thank you. I will leave you with this our jingle. Bye bye.